No, my question, Matt, that you didn't listen to was what we gonna do when we open the show.
What we do when we open the show?
You normally have a good idea, not just run with it.
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta improv it.
Isn't that what we normally do anyway?
Yeah, usually.
Because these writers ain't doing. Oh
No.
wait. What?
Oh, we did it again. Do we have to like clap again or
Can we?
something?
Can we? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
He is a legend, Ryan Landry.
I'll get legend.
You get legend.
Okay, I'll get legend.
I'll be just that guy.
He's the guy, Matt Gobert.
This is episode 52 of the Matt Ryan Show, and Ryan, I think our heart skipped a beat a couple of times last Saturday night. Huh?
Hard to skip the beat. You're lucky we got some medication for blood pressure and all kind of other stuff. Because guys, I'm lucky that my roommate was nice enough to let me yell at the TV while he's studying for PT school. Because I'm throwing stuff at the wall. We'll get into that.
We'll get into that soon.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But first things first.
First things first, it is rivalry week.
That
and
it is.
Opening week of the NFL
That
season.
is.
The Who Dat Nation start their campaign and march towards Phoenix in February of 2015 and open up on the road against the dreaded and very much hated Atlanta Falcons, Ryan. I'm curious to see what kind of team the Falcons are going to have this year because they were down last year, but they do still have a little bit of talent. As much as I hate admitting that.
They do have a lot of talent. The guy who took his name from the name of this show as their starting quarterback in Matt Ryan in Atlanta.
Yeah, we haven't seen our
He's a talented quarterback. You got it. As unbiased as I'm trying to be right now, Matt Ryan's a pretty good quarterback in the backfield. You got Steven Jackson, who's got a lot of experience. He's also got a lot of years on his tires. And then you got Roddy White and Julio Jones, who have proven in years past to be a very dynamic 1-2 on the outside. But Roddy White's like 40.
Yeah, he's getting up there in age.
If Roddy White plays 14 games this season, I'll be impressed. If I'm not mistaken, Roddy White was hurt a lot of last season.
Along with Julio Jones.
And they don't have Tony Gonzalez on the offensive side of the ball anymore. So Atlanta's really going to be reaching for some offensive production this season. But yet again, you can't count out Matt Ryan.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What's going to be a safety valve? Because, like you mentioned, Gonzalez is no longer there, and even Harry Douglas, their slot receiver, he might be older than Roddy.
I think
he's been there 100 years.
I think he is.
So, other than Julio Jones, the Falcons really don't have much, I guess you could say, polished youth,
right.
Or they have some experience, and they may still have the fountain youth like Steve Smith has had his entire career.
Right.
It seems like it would be interesting to see what he does in Baltimore, but at the same time, I think the Saints this preseason showed that they're already in midseason form, and I think they go into this game ready to play, for sure.
Quite an interesting 53-man roster, as you guys are all fully aware that before today we did not have a kicker signed to the roster, but the Saints dropped Ryan Griffin and re-signed Shane Graham. It was kind of a money move. When you look at what would have happened if we keep him versus what happens if we terminate his contract and signed a new one. We did keep five wide receivers. We all thought we were going to keep 6 wide receivers, but the interesting cut of Meacham, I think, has to do with the fact that Joe Morgan is younger, and they're both the same type of wide receiver. They're a streaky, tenon slant wide receiver that can lift the lid open off of a defense, and then you've got the talent of Brandon Cooks, you've got Kenny Stills, you've got Nick Toon, and of course you have the quiet storm Marcus Colston and Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, and then of course
the
2 guys that I don't know if it was surprising that they made the practice squad, but it shows the Saints are trying to see if the youthful guys have a chance in Brandon Coleman and Zatavius Jones.
Both
of them
both made it, so we've got 7.
So you got 2 in the practice squad, and
7 altogether.
odds are an injury is going to happen. So it wouldn't surprise me if one of them gets some playing time this year. And I think with the practice squad going to 10 now, I think the Saints could afford to put 2 of them on there.
I think Brandon Coleman's got the most promise of the youth that wasn't one of the highly touted like Brandon Cooks, of course, because Brandon Coleman stands at what, 6'4", 6'5",
yeah,
200.
Maybe they're thinking another Colston.
If they can coach this guy into getting some decent hands and not dropping everything that comes his way when Colston decides to finally, say, all right, it's time for me to hang up the cleats and let the youth take over, which in the next 2 or 3 years could happen.
Yeah, he's, I think, 31 now.
He's on his 9th season. playing a hell of a lot of ball. But moving into week 1, Atlanta, I think, has the toughest call of it all by letting Hard Knocks, or actually being forced into having Hard Knocks film their preseason, as you saw.
If you want to understand, aren't they going to eventually force all the NFL teams to do it?
At some point or another, and I think it's a BS call. But the Falcons have been working very hard to toughen up Atlanta, and it has shown to prove null and void in the preseason. They blew a 17-point lead within 3 minutes of game time in week 2 or week 3.
Yeah, it was I think against the Titans.
Yeah, against the Titans. Mettenberger led them on a game-winning drive, a specialty teams touchdown, and then a defensive touchdown, all within a 3-minute time span. Atlanta is not the same 13-3 Atlanta we saw a couple of seasons ago. They're not, even though they still have a lot of the same personnel. You don't really have somebody that you need to put a red flag on and to be like a Jimmy Graham, like a Tony Gonzalez, like an outstanding running back or anything that you really got to worry about it. They're going to be piecing this together by committee, and the Saints should come out of this with a 2-score W, if not worse.
And not to mention the Falcons have a very aging defense that was average at best, last year. It just, on paper, this is a game that the Saints could handily win, but
it is Atlanta.
It's Atlanta. It's the first game of the year. It's on the road. Falcons are actually a 1.5-point favorite. Now, are they using home field advantage? And I use that term loosely as lately, especially the last 10 years or so, the Georgia Dome has started to be called Superdome East because of the amount of Saints fans that travel to that game. You're going to have probably 20,000 Saints fans
at least. And you also got to take into consideration that under Sean Payton and Drew Brees, the Saints are 13-3 against the Falcons.
Yeah, I saw
13-3.
Two things come to mind. There's one guy that is the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, and the other guy is Arthur Blank.
That is true.
Yes, they are indeed. Or Peyton is indeed their dad.
Yes.
But Ryan, what's your keys to the Saints game?
Offense just doing what they do. Offense is doing what they do. I think Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons offense is not going to be able to keep up with the defense. I think the defense gets 2 turnovers. I don't think we see the insane defense scoring a touchdown, but I do think Drew and the offense get rolling early and get rolling fast. We're playing indoors. It's going to be a very comfortable environment, like you said, with 20,000 strong black and gold in the Who Dat Nation being in Atlanta. I think as long as the offense can stay clicking on all cylinders like they looked against Indianapolis, I think this should be a no-brainer. I think the Saints could take this by 14, if not 21.
Yeah, the Saints definitely have had success there before, and one thing I'm going to be curious to see, I think if anything, the Falcons are going to try to get that running game going with Steven Jackson. That might be their bread and butter this year. If the Saints can show that they can stop the run, it could be a very long day for a Saints secondary that – at its moments this year, did pretty well against Andrew Luck, and there's a significant amount of playing time with the starters in there. And, I'm going to take the Saints to win, but I think it'll be a little closer just because maybe just first game, jitters, trying to get it out of the way. Maybe we'll have to I'm always a little weary, but not really weary on this. I'm more just I'm going to go cautiously optimistic on this one. Or maybe it's something along the lines that maybe the Falcons get a late touchdown. I'm going to go Saints 27-20. I think they'll control the game. Falcons may hang around, but I think the Saints will at least have that feeling where they're in control and never really in super serious danger of maybe losing the game.
I think when it comes down to it, Matt, I think you're pretty spot on with that prediction. I'm going to go Saints 31, Falcons 21. For the same reason, like you said, a late garbage touchdown.
Well, what you mentioned earlier, it's definitely capable of being a 2-3 touchdown game. The Saints have done it before.
Yeah, they've done it in Atlanta. You sure as hell is going to do it at home. This game could get out of hand, but like we said, with that late touchdown, making it look a lot closer than it was with the final score of only 7 to 10 points. I don't think Atlanta makes it to 7 wins this season. I think 7's generous. The NFC South as a whole looks very promising this year. Not counting Atlanta, Carolina still has almost the same defense.
And you still have never had a repeat champion there, and Carolina's going to have their hands full. The Saints are on paper a favorite, and some people are even saying the Buccaneers could be a surprise team.
They are.
Maybe
we shall
maybe
see.
An 8-9 win wild card.
We shall see as things unfold. But week 1 is upon us.
Indeed, it is.
Sunday. What time's kickoff? High noon.
High noon in the time zone that matters.
Central.
Yeah. which is probably about 90% of the viewership of the show.
Yep.
That might even be conservative.
Right.
But switching gears a little bit, week 1 is in the books for another team, right? As Ryan is testing out his pitching arm this past weekend, apparently.
Yeah, those pillows were flying at about 65, 70 miles an hour, and it got really out of hand real fast for as far as my blood pressure, and I'm sure yours was concerned as well. I mean, the concerns we had off top showed themselves within that first drive. You know, Wisconsin has such a strong rush offense, and we could not stop the run. They were gashing us for 7, 10, 15. Well, I mean, what? 45 on the first drive.
Exactly. I mean, right. We got a couple of clips we got from the game here. We'll show these 2 clips here. You talk about Gordon gushing us right up and you know, we've got 2 good plays here. It's just like a couple 10-yard type of runs, but I mean, LSU's getting dominated here at the line of scrimmage. You know, Gordon's having his field day, and I mean, what was the first half? He had like 130
yards at halftime. They killed us at the point of attack the entire first half.
Exactly.
We had 2 defensive linemen right around 300 pounds getting blown off the line of scrimmage. But I think the adjustments that needed to be made in the second half was loading the box.
Right.
We came out and played a 7-man front like it was just a regular offense. And these guys had, I want to say, the 4th or 5th best rushing attack in the nation last year.
Yeah, it was definitely up there.
And, you know, I took it for granted that they were a Big Ten team and a Big Ten powerhouse. You know, Gordon had 1,400 yards last year. He put 140 on South Carolina. Big freaking deal. Well, we got the big freaking deal in the first half.
Absolutely. And then one guy I was impressed with, it seemed like he progressed more in the game, was Anthony Jennings.
Yes.
Definitely had a better second half. We also got to look at true freshman Brandon Harris, which actually got its 3 plays that he's in there for. And you can't really evaluate what the guy did. I mean, he just
had 3 plays.
Well, first off, the first play on, of course, was the reverse here, where they try to do it with Quinn. And, you know, he has that hesitation right there, and I wonder if that's what cost the play to begin with right there. And then, of course, we're going to get into his next 2 plays, where I believe the second one was actually, they both may have been the zone read, I want to say. But we have him taking the ball right here. And this one,
scrimmage.
He didn't do a good job of getting it to McGee, and Wisconsin's defense easily read it. And then, of course, he's facing, I believe it was like a long 3rd and 13 play here on his 3rd down play. I mean, he seems like he's definitely got all the physical tools in the world. He's just going to need some experience to see as he took the sack there. But, like I said, first game on the road, I mean, the guy, you know, it's going to be a learning experience for sure. But back to Jennings, you know, a lot of people haven't been too thrilled with him, but the truth is, Ryan, he's got 2 big wins against
2 Big Ten powerhouses.
And at a neutral site. The first one was, now this one was more of a home game, but the Iowa game was basically a road game. And, you know, can the guy progress? And the performance he had in this game, it reminded me of Jared Lee's one against Oregon, where he just kind of managed the game. I mean, Jared Lee in that game, if everybody remembers, he went 10 of 22 for like about 100 yards passing. Didn't really light it up, but his decision-making was smart for the most part. And I guess if one thing that Jennings may have struggled with a little bit was the screen passes.
Yeah.
I mean, just has to work on that timing. Yeah.
We saw a couple of screen passes behind Fournette where Fournette had open ground. There would have been at least 10, 15 yards and a first down. The one thing I took away from Jennings' performance is anytime Jennings rolled out of the pocket, he made great throws, he made great decisions, and he let his receivers move according to what the defense gave them. You know, if you go back to Durrell's touchdown, the 80-yard touchdown pass, the protection was there. He got out of the pocket, and when he rolls out, Durrell makes the break to the goal line, and you see him on the 80-yard touchdown pass. And then this one here, as he's rolling out of the pocket, he seems to be a more efficient quarterback when he's on the move, especially to his strong side.
And even though there was nothing on that play, you could show he's maturing by being able to get rid of the ball as opposed to taking a sack or something like that. But we got another play where he's definitely showing his awareness better for sure.
And the good thing about Anthony Jennings is, like we have mentioned before, is he's a very mobile quarterback. He can move when he has to move. Mettenberger was a pocket NFL-type quarterback where he steps up in the pocket and delivers the ball. Jennings can move all around the field and let the defense break down as it's supposed to.
Absolutely. And here, this is just showing us that he's got the field awareness there, running the option with Fournette, kept it, and got about 8 yards on the play. I mean, it's showing them him being more mature, for sure, as it is. And I think he's got a chance to progress. I mean, he doesn't have to light the world on fire. He just has to manage the game.
Absolutely. Well, as we've talked ad nauseum about the LSU offense as a whole, we're going to establish a solid run game, and that is bread and butter. What we took home to win the game. Hilliard, who was the sleeping giant of the entire spring game and everything like that. Everybody's raving about Fournette. McGee gets the 18 when really and truthfully Hilliard put the team on his back.
Absolutely. I mean, and this was another play that you can also praise Harris with. Jennings with, showing the awareness here. But this was a play towards the end of the first half where it was showing Hilliard's explosiveness here on just the little dump off screen pass. That was there. Give it to here, and he just goes beast mode here. And that's pretty much, in a way, that's what he did to Wisconsin in the second half, especially in that fourth quarter, for sure. And then, of course, one of my favorite plays of the game was it was showing the speed and potential of LSU's youth on the 2-point conversion here.
Yes.
What did you think of this play? I thought it was so well drawn up.
That and the fake punt were my two plays of the game.
Right.
You got Trey Quinn here in motion.
Right here.
And nobody really pays attention to him because this is his first touch of the game, as a matter of fact, and he just rolls out in the open space in the flats to get the 2.
I did enjoy the diamond cutter.
Definitely.
And then one thing LSU's defense did, especially in the end, they just seemed to find the right gear. Not to mention, they could not throw on us the entire game, and it really showed when we had to force them to throw.
Did he go 8 for 24 with 2 picks? Wisconsin's quarterback?
I believe he only threw for about 50, 55 yards, something like that.
Dunks.
Yeah.
Anytime he tried to go downfield, it was either a bad throw, incomplete because the coverage was good, or he threw into an interception. LSU's young secondary really did show up, 2 turnovers, really put us back in the driver's seat to take control of the game.
And I believe LSU won the turnover battle. Was it 2-1?
2-1.
Because
2-1.
Jennings didn't turn the ball over. The LSU was on the and the tight ends. They struggled. They were getting open, but they got to learn how to protect the ball. Deshaun Smith dropped them wide open.
Yeah.
Dixon had the fumble, of course. But we need those guys to step up because they can prove to be a very valuable safety valve for a young quarterback like Jennings. And Harris is going to get some reps next couple of weeks as well. But we need them both because God forbid an injury happens. They both got to be ready to go. And next week, if LSU takes care of business, and of course in 2 weeks when they play UL Monroe, it's a chance for Harris to get some reps, but at the same time, Jennings will better get some more reps, and I could see LSU maybe trying to air it out a little bit more to work on the passing game, which will open up that running game than we saw in the second half for sure.
Well, the Tigers play host this weekend to San Houston State in their home opener. I would be willing to bet that you're going to see a lot more Brandon Harris to get him some experience both in Tiger Stadium in that noise as well as just full speed gameplay. And, of course, it's San Houston State, and you got ULM. But, we head into week 4 against Mississippi State. That'll be the big test.
Yes.
Even though we're at home, that's SEC play.
Absolutely. But this week, LSU has the so-called cupcake game. But it kind of comes at a good time for LSU. Right. I think it's a chance for LSU to get some of their kinks worked out from this week. I think LSU will cruise to something along the lines of maybe like a 41-7 type of victory. I see Sam Houston maybe getting a late score or something like that. But you never know. Defense may play hard and may not want to let them get in the end zone.
One thing you got to take into consideration, Matt, and I'm not trying to downplay the Tigers at all, but Sam Houston was a top-notch ball club in FCS last year, and they were a spread offense, and they have some athletes. And they can score if they get open.
They have a very good passing game. I think that's going to test the secondary.
Sure will.
Test for the secondary this week. And Les Miles actually even talked about that. And
they were FCS runner-up
last year, and I believe Les Miles, what was the phrase he used? I believe it was quality youths.
Quality youths.
Another one of those lessons right there. I guess you kind of have to be careful when you say that, too. I mean, you could have let something slip there and said yellow youths or something like that. Usually when you hear the word youths, it's like, wait, what are you talking about, Les?
I think the one thing to look forward to in this game more than anything else is to see how the D-line shapes up. Our D-line looked terrible against Wisconsin.
Even that other running back, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
It starts with a C. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But Clements?
I think it might have been
Clements.
Might have been
but our D-line got blown off the line at the point of attack, and it really came down to the linebacker play and loading 8, sometimes 9 in the box to stop that Wisconsin power run. if we can get a lot of quarterback pressure on Saturday against Sam Houston State for a team who runs a spread option, or excuse me, a spread offense, much like we're going to see against A&M in a few,
and
later on in the season, Auburn as well.
Runs a little bit of it.
This is going to be really
it's almost a preparation,
measuring stick,
and a preparation for probably half of the SEC games that we're going to have.
Sure.
It's becoming, ever since I guess the days of Tim Tebow, the spread offense and Urban Meyer, the spread offense has made an impact in the SEC, and a lot of teams run it.
And you've got to look at A&M. A&M jumped from 21 to 9th after beating the brakes off of South Carolina at home, and Kenny Hill breaking Manziel's records in his first ever start in an A&M jersey with 511 yards on the road. So we're really going to have some solid secondary play and some defensive line pressure, so our linebackers can actually somewhat drop into coverage.
Absolutely, but I think the Tigers will play well this week and
come out 2-0.
Come out 2-0 and definitely get ready for SEC play in a couple of weeks as well. But we're getting it pulled up right here, Ryan. But we'll have rapid fire next. Did we get any kind of fan mail this week?
No, Blanche and the guys were sleeping this week. They didn't give me anything.
At some point,
some dedication.
It's going to be almost as disappointing as JB's fantasy team this week when I take him to the woodshed.
Coach, you're in trouble too. I'm a 49-point favorite. You're in trouble.
Ouch. Thinking this is the guy that took Tom Brady #1 overall.
I'm not saying a word. Thanks for LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah.
LaShawn McCoy, Peyton Manning, Monty Ball, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'll take it.
It's just SMH.
SMFH.
But anyway, let's go to some pick'em here. Of course, we got the LSU game out of the way. We both are pretty much saying blowout. I don't even think it has a spread on it.
No, probably not.
Pretty much pointless.
I won't, but let me say this, though. I will not be surprised if Sam Houston State puts up 21. I won't.
It would, because the last month has been known to do that.
We may have 56.
Yeah, it would be a game like that.
Sam Houston might put up 21 on the Tigers in Death Valley, which is more than ULL has put up against the Tigers in Death Valley. Just let that be known.
Just in case our viewers don't know, the last time ULL has, first of all, they never scored more than 7 against LSU in a game. They're averaging 1.1 points a game against LSU. And the last time that ULL has scored a touchdown against LSU, drum roll please, Ryan, that'd be 106 years, 1908. World War I started 11 years after, 1919? No, I'll take it back. 1914 to 1919. So World War I started 6 years after
the last time ULL, which back then wasn't even USL, it was something else. Sure.
Probably Little Sisters of the Poor Southwest. Something.
What we got on SEC? Who's the matchups this week?
Let's see what we got this week. SEC, pulling it up right now. Oh, and of course the app goes crazy, so I'm just about to pull that up.
The app goes crazy.
Just a second, hang on.
I hope, speaking of the LSU game, I'd like to see some more out of Fournette. Fournette looked like he had a deer in the headlights effect.
He runs hard, but his vision I wasn't impressed with it.
He looked good returning kicks.
Yes.
Once he got in the rhythm, and I think, we had discussed that during the game. Some of us that were in the league chat were talking. Some guys, Blanche, this one goes for you, wasn't happy. Some guys weren't happy seeing him returning kicks because of the potential injury thing. And I understand that, but this is football. Anytime you step on that field, you got to potentially get hurt.
It's the same reason that
you got to get the guy some touches and get him to feel full-speed football at the NCAA level before you can actually expect this guy to be 120 yards a game carry.
It's the same reason I heard some people freaking about Tre'Davious White returning punts, or starting cornerback. But trying to put playmakers out there.
Exactly. Put the ball in the hands of the athletes. Ask A&M how that works.
Exactly. First game I want to say, Ole Miss goes to a Vanderbilt team that got absolutely embarrassed at home.
And we both took Vanderbilt. Big.
Yeah.
Lest we forget, Vanderbilt's coach headed to Penn State. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Frank. And not to mention, they have a lot of QB troubles. And
even though Rivers.
And even though Ole Miss struggled last week against Boise State and got the win, this one has the potential to get pretty ugly. Ole Miss is actually a 20-point favorite. I'm going to go surprisingly. Vanderbilt will cover, but I still got Ole Miss winning it probably by about 14 or 17.
I think Vanderbilt makes some turnarounds, but the one thing I would take away from the Ole Miss-Boise State game is, yes, this is not the Boise State of Chris Peterson.
Yeah, who's at Washington.
Who's at Washington now since Scarcesian left. This is not the old Boise State that beat OU, but still, Ole Miss managed to have 3 interceptions and hold the Boise State team in a neutral site to a relatively low score. I think Ole Miss takes the W, but I think Vandy covers.
Absolutely. Pulling up some other SEC games right now. Well, that's taking forever. But one big game this weekend you actually have, you go a little bit west, and the very defensive-minded Michigan State team goes to the offensive powerhouse of Oregon. What's your take on that one, Ryan?
An unstoppable force meets an immovable object. What do you take from this one? I'm going to go with the old cliche. Defense wins championships. I think Oregon loses at home.
Oregon loses at home. I believe they have a pretty long winning streak going.
They're probably, I think, 3rd in the nation right now at home. 3rd or 4th. I think Oregon loses at home to the Big Ten defensive team of the year last season in Michigan State. I think Michigan State's defense is.
In Michigan State, some people have them in the Final Four making the playoffs.
I think Michigan State's defense could be neck and neck in the SEC. I really do. I think these guys are extremely talented, and I think Oregon's spread offense won't be able to keep up because these guys play fundamental, sound defense. They're not lights out, blazing speed, but they don't get burned.
This could almost be a quarterfinal matchup. Both of those teams are going to, are teams that could get into the playoff. I'm going to go Oregon by field goal.
Not so fast.
Not so fast. Home field is the only reason I'm going with Oregon. 3? I'm going to go by 3.
Okay.
And I think it'll be a little bit lower scoring than some people. I'm going to go along the lines of like a 20-17.
What's the over-under?
The over-under in that game. Ooh, wow.
Probably low.
Let me see if I can.
Michigan State doesn't put up a lot of points.
No, and that's the thing. Can Michigan,
run the ball
can Michigan State score enough on Oregon? That's the problem.
And let's not count out Oregon's defense, who's been pretty damn good.
Been better, yes.
Their talents, it's going to be literally the unstoppable force, immovable object.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get it here. The connection's a little slow.
As our producer, lets the tape run behind us.
Yeah. We got to keep the people entertained somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not drawing up the over-under, but Oregon's favored by 12. So
favored by 12. I
guess I'm thinking Michigan State.
I still like Michigan State.
Yeah, I guess
mainly because I really don't like the Ducks. I just don't. I still don't think they're legit. They're good. They're very good. I just don't think they're championship caliber. I don't.
And while we're sticking with the top 25 matchups, USC goes to Stanford this week.
Damn good game. Tune into that one. Where are they playing? Oh, it doesn't matter.
It's going to be at Stanford, actually, this time. And Stanford, I think, has the longest home winning streak in the country right now, like 17 or 18 games, I want to say. I got the Cardinal. I think USC's better, but I don't think Sark has them there yet.
USC has more talent. The Cardinals a better team.
I think they are a better team.
Individually speaking, USC on paper is a better team because of the athletes they have around the ball. But I think all of the hoopla going around USC right now with not losing 1 but 2 of their players to all of that, what garbage is going on, I think Sarkisian is still trying to corral his team. I think Stanford wins.
Okay. Well, the SEC slate should be fairly easy this week. In fact, the only conference game was Vanderbilt and Ole Miss this week. But just for fun, let's just go through it anyway.
It's week 2, so it's going to be cupcakes.
Florida Atlantic travels to Powell.
Bama by 35.
Bama 35. So Atlanta will cover. They're a 40-point underdog. I think Bama will, yeah.
West Virginia covered.
West Virginia covered. I'd have bet, like I told you last week, I'd bet the mortgage on that one.
Bama, on defense, is in trouble fast. West Virginia has the athletes, much like Oregon in that fast-paced offense, but they got straight gashed.
Yeah.
I could see them putting together a few drives to keep it a decently close game. No, this game was back and forth, 12 rounds, haymaker after haymaker.
West Virginia gave them all the
West Virginia gave them everything that they could, and Bama barely made it out of there alive, thanks to their younger, not even Yeldon, Henry. The younger running back, that guy's a monster. He's like 6'4", 260.
Yeldon should be a Heisman candidate, but it seems like since his freshman year, he just doesn't run hard.
Yeldon's overrated.
Here's an interesting one. South Carolina hosts East Carolina. Now, East Carolina's been one of those teams that every now and then they'll sneak up on somebody.
Spurrier doesn't lose 2 in a row.
No, especially at home.
They're at home again?
They're at home again.
Spurrier will be on the hot seat.
They're 17-point favorite.
Gamecocks.
Yeah, I got Gamecocks probably right around that spread.
Yeah.
I think I play a pretty solid game this week.
Bet the push.
Just for conversation's sake and our audience, the Nicholls State Colonels travel to Arkansas.
The Nicholls State Colonels played a pretty decent ball game against the Air Force Falcons.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't look terrible. They had some decent stat lines. I think a couple of turnovers were costing the game. Nicholls State goes to Arkansas. Arkansas looks like a new team. They looked real good against Auburn until late. Colonels 0-2.
Can't do it. It was just not good enough. Arkansas is going to have a field day running the ball
All day. All day.
Let's see what else we got here. Eastern Michigan goes to Florida. You think they actually play this week?
If you want to call that a football game.
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah, I think LSU actually has Eastern Michigan scheduled in a year or two coming to Death Valley.
Eastern Michigan's been a bowl contender, though.
That's barely a Division 1A team now.
But Eastern Michigan's been bowling the past few years. They're not a terrible school. They're really not. But when you're matching up the likes of LSU, Florida, Alabama, Auburn, et cetera, yeah, it is kind of like apples and oranges.
Yeah. I got Florida big, though. I think they're going to be even more hungry. For sure.
Turnovers cost by Florida from not playing last week. This is technically their week one.
Technically, yes.
Technically.
Speaking of the SEC, who has 8 teams ranked this week?
8. 6 are in the top 12. LSU being number 12. So everyone else in the SEC of those 6 is ranked above us. Bama at 2, Auburn at 5, Georgia at 6, A&M at 9. Who's the other one? Maybe it's 5.
Might be 5.
I think it is. I mean, we're at 12. So 5 of the 14 in the top 12. Yet we're not the strongest conference in the nation.
The Missouri Tigers, who are the lowest ranked,
24.
At 24, travel to the Rockets of Toledo. Lance Moore's old school.
Mizzou. I don't think no. SEC East defending champions? No. Mizzou goes 2-0.
Not so fast!
Oh! Upset of the week!
Upset special of the week.
Okay.
I got the Rockets at home outscoring Missouri.
Okay.
In a shootout.
In the Michael Sam-less Missouri defense. Because the guy can actually play football, and that's all that really matters.
Absolutely.
Who got signed to the Dallas Cowboys practice squad, not to mention.
Was it official? I know
he has to pass the physical.
He has to pass the physical.
Hey, upset special Toledo over Missouri.
That's my upset special.
Well, the legend still has yet to pick his, and I don't think there's going to be many options left.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the top 25 now. Actually, yeah. All right, we picked enough SEC cookies. I mean, do you really want to pick San Jose State at Auburn?
Watch San Jose State give them a ball game. Much like Utah State did a couple years ago. Watch. I will not be surprised.
Okay. Let's see what we got here.
What you got in the top 25 that's interesting?
Interesting. We haven't touched on yet. How could we forget the game that's always overrated but historically good? Michigan goes to the very overrated number 16 Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Michigan looked like a freaking monster last week. Even though they're playing Appalachian State, who is now an FBS school.
You think that was a revenge game for about 6 years ago? Notre Dame only a 4.5-point favorite at home.
If you want to call that my upset special of the week because they're underdogs only by 4.5, I'm going Michigan. I think Michigan, they looked by the stat line. Of course, they're playing Appalachian State, but I mean, what, 52-7?
Something like that.
52-7. It was 49-0 before Appalachian State scored.
Right.
You know, they were up. If I'm not mistaken, it was 42-0 at halftime. Michigan looks like they finally put the pieces together. It looked like their offense was running the way it should. Gardner had an almost perfect game against Appalachian State, who did not impress many people last year. I think Michigan takes this one. Notre Dame's overrated.
You know,
they still don't belong.
I'm gonna kind of go on the line too. I'm not really gonna make it much. I'm gonna stick with Toledo's my so-called upset special, but I think Michigan gets them too. Last one here is the only one that's even remotely interesting. Virginia Tech. You never know what team of them is going to show up. They're playing at Ohio State this week. No Braxton Miller.
I almost had a field day Saturday watching Navy give Ohio State everything they could handle and then some. If Navy had any sort of pass game, that game was long over. Navy put almost 400 yards on the ground. Now, granted, Navy runs the ball in 90 to 95% of the game, if not the
They
entire
also
game.
gave Ohio State scoring that fumble when they were moving out. That's a 14-point swing.
Much like UCLA and Virginia. Yeah, Virginia blew that game.
They really did.
They handed UCLA that game because they outscored UCLA on offense.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense gave them everything they could. UCLA, I think, only had one offensive touchdown. No, maybe two and a field goal.
I think it was 2 and a field goal.
2 and a field goal, and UVA would have won that game.
But that was the shocker that Virginia held. I mean, they're finally slowly improving, but UCLA should have.
UCLA's overrated.
That's
overrated. Everybody's talking about this quarterback in UCLA as a Heisman candidate. No, he's not. He's terrible.
Still got to play defense.
He's terrible. He's terrible.
He still got to play defense.
He's terrible. Watch the game.
And not to mention Stanford and Oregon, maybe even USC. I think they're better than UCLA.
Arizona State.
Arizona
State's right.
How do we forget about Arizona State?
The Pac-12 and the SEC are loaded this year. It's going to be quite interesting. Back up. Michigan and Notre Dame, I'm going to take Michigan as the 4.5-point underdog, and I'm going to think Michigan's going to win.
Okay.
I'm going with Beamer ball.
Go Beamer ball.
I'm going with Beamer ball. I got the Hokies outdoing the Ohio State choke eyes. I think if there's one team outside of the SEC I hate more than anybody else besides USC, it's Ohio State. I think Ohio State blows it. I think Braxton Miller is the biggest thing that cost them their season. Ohio State was a national championship contender, if not national championship runner-up, only to Florida State, who did not look impressive this weekend either.
No.
Interesting stat. Saw this one earlier. When Ohio State scored, when Oklahoma State scored this weekend against Florida State to make it a 3-point game, that was the closest anybody's been to Florida State after halftime in the regular season since the beginning of last season. Wow. No one in the regular season last year was within 3 points, was within 7 points of Florida State.
And the only team
I
think the only team that was even beating them was Auburn.
Auburn.
And Auburn.
That was the only time they were behind.
Auburn should have won that game.
Yep.
But
Florida State's.
Could have won show though, right?
Here's my thing to wrap it up, Grover.
Okay.
Florida State, Ohio State, Oregon, and UCLA. These are 4 teams to watch this week, these next few weeks coming up. Why? Well, because they suspect.
Oh, they are indeed suspect.
They suspect. Because if you ain't Booger Nation, you suspect.
I think Booger Nation gets 100 yards this week, and I think Kenny Hayden also gets 100 yards.
200 yards on the ground
Easy.
between 2 guys.
Frank McGee also scores.
Jesus.
Yeah, I think LSU's they're gonna try to throw him, have some success with it, but at the same time, last week like,
not so fast.
all right, time to ball the vanilla playbook.
Smash mouth up the middle. Smash mouth up the middle.
I think Ohio State wins, but they survive. I got Beaver Ball at least covering the 10 points.
I hate Ohio State.
I hate Ohio
The
State.
10-point spread in Columbus?
In Columbus.
Damn, that's the only advantage they have.
But
If they were playing in Blacksburg?
That's a tough place to win at.
Blacksburg?
Yep.
Hell yeah, it is. Last time LSU lost the non-conference game.
It is. It's also one of the most epic college football entrances.
Yes.
They call it the Anderson Man. Can't get
Anybody who comes out to Metallica gets the Matt Ryan show approval.
Absolutely.
Anyone.
In fact, what was it this week? LSU came out to. I'm from Louisiana, actually.
I'm from Louisiana.
And it was funny thing is, Wisconsin had this big 3-minute epic video, and I think LSU's one may have been that long. Les waits like 15 seconds. He just sends the troops out. They're like, we're not waiting on no video. We're ready to play ball, which is kind of funny.
Nice.
But it was pretty cool seeing all the fans out there doing the trucker horn when it was playing and all that stuff. Good times for sure.
Well, LSU has proven yet again out-of-conference opponents in Houston, especially ranked ones. Next up, Sam Houston on Saturday.
Absolutely.
And then make sure, as I know all you loyal fans will, at 12 o'clock, high noon on Sunday, get your church in, get your lunch in, get your spot on the couch, and don't move.
That's right. It's a real game. No excuse.
No excuses.